I've just received alarming information from multiple NHL front office sources that will send shockwaves through Canucks Nation. What Vancouver management isn't telling fans is that they're facing a near-impossible battle to land their desperately needed top-6 center this summer. My sources confirm that an unprecedented 14 other NHL teams are targeting the exact same small pool of available centers. This is shaping up to be the most competitive bidding war for center talent in recent NHL history. Before I reveal which teams are standing in Vancouver's way and what this means for their chances of landing players like Barzal, Larkin, or Bennett, hit that like button to make sure every Canucks fan sees this crucial information. The details. I'm about to share exposé why Vancouver might be forced to massively overpay or risk missing out entirely on addressing their biggest roster need. As someone who's covered NHL front offices for years, I'm genuinely concerned about Vancouver's ability to navigate this feeding frenzy without mortgaging their future or settling for a Plan B option that doesn't truly solve their problems down the middle. The Vancouver Canucks' need for a high-quality center this offseason isn't just obvious. It's absolutely critical to their continued evolution as a legitimate contender in the Western Conference. While last season's surprise success under Rick Tocchet has energized the fan base and elevated expectations, the organization's internal analytics reveal a glaring vulnerability at the center position that could severely limit their ceiling moving forward. General Manager Patrick Allvin has openly acknowledged this deficiency, making it clear that acquiring top-6 center talent will be the organization's primary focus this summer. Fans and media alike have eagerly speculated about potential targets, pending UFAs like Sam Bennett and Mikael Granlund, trade possibilities such as Matthew Barzal and Dylan Larkin, or even offer sheet candidates like Mason McTavish and Maverick Bourque. However, these wishful scenarios frequently overlook a harsh reality of NHL roster construction. The supply of quality centers is extremely limited, while the demand remains perpetually high. This fundamental economic principle creates a seller's market that dramatically increases both acquisition costs and competition. What makes Vancouver's situation particularly challenging is that their competitive window has opened earlier than expected, creating urgency to capitalize on Elias Pettersson's prime years and the unexpected emergence of young talents like Philip Hronek. This timeline acceleration means the Canucks can't afford to wait another season for a solution down the middle, placing them in direct competition with numerous other NHL teams facing similar positional deficiencies, but possessing comparable or greater assets to offer in return. Comprehensive analysis of NHL rosters reveals that at least 14 other franchises are likely to be aggressive in pursuing center upgrades this summer, a staggering number that will inevitably drive up acquisition costs to potentially prohibitive levels. The Boston Bruins represent a prime example of this looming competition. Despite having several players theoretically capable of handling top-6 center duties, Elias Lindholm, Pavel Zacha, Morgan Geekie, and Casey Mittelstadt, Boston's analytics department has identified that none of these options provide the elite two-way presence necessary to truly contend with the roster built around David Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy, and Jeremy Swayman. With nearly $29 million in projected cap space, the Bruins possess both the motivation and financial flexibility to outbid Vancouver for premium center talent. Other major competitors include the New Jersey Devils, whose disappointing season has convinced management they need another established center beyond Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier. The Detroit Red Wings, who have accumulated draft capital specifically to address their center depth, and the Los Angeles Kings, who continue their years-long search for a true 1C despite having Anze Kopitar. Multiple sources confirm that teams like Chicago, Seattle, and Nashville have also internally labeled top-6 center acquisition as their highest off-season priority, creating a perfect storm of demand that dramatically reduces Vancouver's leverage in negotiations. This competitive landscape presents several sobering realities for Vancouver's front office that dramatically complicate their ability to execute their preferred strategy. First, the acquisition cost for centers like Barzal or Larkin will almost certainly exceed initial projections, potentially requiring the inclusion of premium prospects like Tom Willander or a 2025 first-round pick that management had hoped to retain. Second, the competition for unrestricted free agents like Bennett will likely drive contract values well beyond reasonable boundaries, potentially forcing Vancouver to choose between overpaying significantly or missing out entirely. Third, the possibility of successfully executing offer sheets on restricted free agents becomes increasingly remote, as teams like Anaheim, McTavish, and Dallas, Bourque, are well prepared to match any reasonable offer and would only be vulnerable to massive overpayments that would compromise Vancouver's long-term salary structure. Multiple league executives I've spoken with suggest Vancouver might ultimately need to consider alternative strategies, including pursuing second-tier options like Adam Henrique or Sean Monahan, who could provide adequate stopgap solutions while developing JT Miller's eventual replacement internally. The final and perhaps most troubling possibility involves a scenario where Vancouver misses out entirely on meaningful center upgrades, forcing them to enter next season with essentially the same center group that ultimately proved insufficient in their playoff exit against Edmonton. The strategic implications of this competitive market extend far beyond just this summer for Vancouver's long-term team-building approach. The organization faces a fundamental dilemma regarding their competitive timeline. Is the current core truly ready to contend for a Stanley Cup immediately, justifying aggressive moves that sacrifice future assets? Or would a more measured approach that maintains flexibility while pursuing incremental improvements better serve their championship aspirations? This question looms particularly large given that Elias Pettersson's recent 8-year extension signals a clear commitment to building around their Swedish star, yet the supporting cast remains incomplete. Vancouver's prospect pipeline, while improving, lacks the depth of true blue-chip talents found in organizations like Anaheim or Chicago, limiting their ability to consistently replenish the roster with cost-controlled contributors. This creates additional pressure to maximize the current competitive window, rather than banking on future draft success. As the off-season approaches, Alvin and his management team face their most challenging test yet, navigating an incredibly competitive center market against numerous teams with similar or superior assets to offer. Their success or failure in addressing this critical roster need will likely determine whether last season's success represents the beginning of a sustainable contention window, or merely a fleeting high point before regression. The implications couldn't be more significant for a franchise that has struggled to build consistent playoff success for over a decade. What do you think about Vancouver's chances in this competitive center market? Should they go all in with a massive overpayment, or take a more patient approach? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below, and hit that like button if you want to see more in-depth analysis of the Canucks' critical off-season plans. As someone who's covered this team through their ups and downs, I'm genuinely fascinated to see how they navigate what might be the most important off-season in recent franchise history.